Good afternoon, everyone. I will now call the May 2nd Inspector General Committee meeting to order. Clerk, may you please take the roll?
Yes. State Attorney Ehrenberg,
Al Johnson for Dave Ehrenberg.
Commissioner Cruz, Public Defender Howard, Vice Chair Crydell,
Present.
Commissioner Kugler,
Here.
Commissioner Romano, Chair Vara Garcia.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to start with introductory comments. Do any of the committee members have any introductory comments?
None, thank you.
No.
None? All right. Well, hearing none, we are going to move on to the approval of the November 2nd, 2023 committee notes. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. I will now turn to Inspector General Carey for the 6-month status report.
Well, good afternoon, Chair, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice, and committee members. It's good to see you, and we'll launch into our presentation here today. This is mainly for folks out on Channel 20 that I always put this up so they see what our mission is. Again, is to provide independent and objective insight, oversight, and foresight in promoting integrity, efficiency, and overall effectiveness in government. And when we say integrity, that's what we're doing there. We're looking at preventing, detecting, investigating potential fraud, waste, abuse in government, and promoting best practices and lessons learned. And ultimately, we're here to enhance public trust in government and to make good government better. Here's our outline, what we're going to be talking about today. Personnel highlights, our activities, budget, where we're going in the future, and then a summary of some of our accomplishments to date. First of all, some new folks that we want to welcome aboard. Investigator Leandro Briannas, Leo, goes by, is Leo here? He's not here. Boy, what a catch do we have with Leo. He is a decorated 28-year career special agent from the Internal Revenue Service investigation squad. And he's investigated government corruption, fraud matters throughout his career. And so we got a good catch getting him on board. And so he's doing great things already for us. We're also with us, Yair is, okay, over here with us. Yair Quintanar is our intern on the audit staff. Yair is a junior at Florida Atlantic University studying accounting, and he's been with us now for, what, a month or so and doing a great job. So thank you, doing a good job. And then some of our staff accomplishments. What we've done, we had a couple folks who've become accredited in our March Inspector General Institute, which was in Jacksonville. Leo went there because you usually have to have at least a year experience, but because of his background in public service investigations, public corruption, he was able to get right into the Institute. And so he became a certified Inspector General. Sonia McNair, who's been with us, Sonia, you're right here. She became a certified Inspector General, Inspector Evaluator. Calentia, who is not here with us today, but she's always on the move doing something. Been appointed to the Florida Bar Grievance Committee for the 15th Judicial Circuit D, and she was also appointed to the Palm Beach Bar Association's Judicial Campaign Practices Committee. And in addition to that, she was the co-chair of our Palm Beach Bar 2024 Bench Bar Conference. Now, here I put this under staff accomplishments because really it's the staff who does the hard work in our accreditation and in our peer reviews. Every 3 years, our office undergoes an accreditation on-site review, and in addition to that, a peer review by the Association of Inspectors General. The Florida Law Enforcement Accreditation Committee, their focus and emphasis when they come out and look at us is on our investigative side. And then the Association of Inspector Generals, they send a peer review team out that focuses on our audit side and our contract oversight and evaluation side. So we have the entire office looked at every 3 years. Not all Office of Inspector Generals are peer-reviewed or accredited. And certainly not all, which I'm very proud to say, on our accreditation, 100% compliance with all of the standards. And the same thing with our peer review. We met all relevant OIG standards. So we scored an A+ in both of those areas. And what this means, it answers the question, who inspects the inspectors? Well, these two organizations, we have, because we're asked at times, well, who evaluates you? Well, we have two separate organizations that do that, very detailed. And so this answers that question. And it also, I hope it contributes to the public, that assures them that their Office of Inspector General, what we do in our investigations and our audits and reviews, they're looked at in detail, and they look at that, make sure that our investigations and audits and reviews are done objectively, independently, and our decisions that we make, our recommendations we make, our findings are based on evidence, not just John Kerry's opinion. It's evidence-based, and that's what they look at to assure the public and to assure you that when we have a report that comes out, that there are checks and balances that looks at us, that to make sure we're doing our job properly. I might mention too, Chris Dykman right here is our accreditation manager, and he's up there with me smiling with our accreditation certificate. Okay, here is where we're going to go now on our activities. And just to recap some of our COVID-related, pandemic-related investigations, and this is from once we started these in March of 2020. This is just a recap of all of the work that we've done in pandemic reviews, investigations. The county received over $750 million in state and federal pandemic funds to help people in businesses and people with rental assistance that need assistance during this time. And so what we have reviewed over this time, the county, their overall operations of are they administering this money properly and the best they can? We've made some recommendations to them, but a good bulk of our work has been on investigations, unfortunately with some folks who falsified documents, and we're going to talk about a couple of those cases during this time, to receive mainly rental assistance and before some small business grants. So now let's get into our investigative highlights here. This is what comes in the door every 6 months, and on the green, that's this 6 months, what came in the door just compared to last 6 months. And Evangeline Rents, I've highlighted Angie before, her and Tecia Morris. Everything that comes in the door is looked at. There is nothing that comes in the door that we don't seriously take a look at to see, is this a complaint that we should be looking at, somebody else should be looking at, but everything is looked at in detail. Both Angie and Tecia are also certified IG investigators. So they are pros at looking at the information to see what we do with it in that very offshoot. Many things you can see, 114 complaints that came in, and you're saying, well, wow, only 33 really we're working on. There's so much of that you don't see from them a lot of times doing follow-up interviews with the individuals. And then a lot of things that come in our door go to other agencies. That we're the people who, when citizens don't know who to call, well, they say, who are you going to call? They call the Office of Inspector General. And we will funnel them to the proper state agency. A lot of times it's a lot of referrals to law enforcement agencies that come through our door that would have not gone to them outside of our hotline that people can call. And of course, we funnel things to the Commission on Ethics too. Sometimes they're dual investigations that we're working with together, but sometimes it's clearly this is the Commission on Ethics jurisdiction, and we'll refer it over to them. So this shows the complaints that have come in of wrongdoing, and then where they were funneled to during this last 6 months. Now for investigations. Stu Robinson usually talks about these things. He's not available to be here today, so I'm going to talk about our investigations. And this compares in the green, this 6 months compared to the last 6 months. We have 8 investigators, and they are fully engaged is lightly saying how engaged they are. They have plenty of investigations ongoing and investigations stacked up for them to be working on. So 35 investigations that have been ongoing during this time. You can see a number of referrals to Commission on Ethics or other law enforcement agencies. And I'm going to talk about the 2 investigations completed during this 6-month period now. Both of them are rental assistance investigations that we did. The first one here was we had 3 people conspired together and submitted fraudulent applications to the county for multiple rental assistance applications. And what we found was we found over a total of $20,400 in assistance, which was provided to them improperly. They falsified their employment documents, who was their true landlord, and they falsified payroll documents that we found. And Lizette McGowan was our investigator on this one. We referred that to the county to recoup the money, and they're in the process of trying to recoup that, and also we referred that over to law enforcement. Now, this next case, you may have read about this in the Palm Beach Post. This was in the news, and this is a really just an unfortunate case where a daughter had submitted her deceased mother's name as the landlord to obtain rental assistance. And so we found that, yes, she did submit false documents about her true landlord to receive this money. And that, since we've referred to law enforcement and to the county to try and recoup that money. And Chelsea Martin was the investigator on this. Now, during this 6-month period, when we turn our cases over to law enforcement, it takes them a good while because they start and they work their process on their investigations. And so there's a number of agencies that we refer our cases to, dependent on jurisdiction. Sometimes if it was in West Palm Beach, they have a specific detective that works those. A number of them are Palm Beach County Sheriff's Department. So it depends, not just the Sheriff's Department, but there's a number of law enforcement agencies that we work with and refer our cases. This was a case that investigator Hugo Bellinger worked pretty good on this case, and once he got it developed, then we referred this to the Sheriff's Department and worked with them, and they, during this 6 months, made an arrest of this individual, Gerald Rizzolo, arrested him on charges of fraud and swindle to obtain property between $20,000 to $50,000. So he had been charged. He's already pled, sentenced to 34 days and a 5-year probation, and again, also ordered to pay back the money that he swindled from the county. There are a total of 4 so far of pandemic-related arrests that have been, that we're aware of, that it has been affected, and there's a number of investigations ongoing with law enforcement. And now for contract oversight and evaluations. And this is our activities, what we've done for the past 6 months in green compared to the last month, or last 6 months. And I've added the category just to show the volume of work they've done that haven't been in the past, what is called investigative activities. And what those are is there's a number of complaints that come in, and sometimes if it's related to if it's related to a person, the investigation division does the investigation. But we have a lot of complaints that come in that are related to procurement and selection committees that they're complaining about the process or the board. It's usually about, we don't think this process was done right, or we think they awarded contracts improperly. And so for those, they come into the contract oversight to Tony Montero's division, and he is the expert that's been doing procurement for not only years with us, before at FAU, he did this for the federal government, and he is the expert usually in training his staff to do these type of investigative activities to see, was this true or was it not? And so he's the one who does this, and I'm going to let Tony talk about those on. And then you saw they gave a couple tips and trends. They're the biggest office that's out and about and seeing folks going on their selection committees and out working with folks on the procurement side. And so they see a lot of things, and so they're the office that produces the most tips and trends, which is information, usually a 1 or 2 page that goes out on new laws that have come about that the cities and the county needs to know about, or best practices, or sometimes lessons learned that they found folks are having some problems on this that they should know to kind of fix in the future. Yes, sir.
John, I wanted to ask one question. On your charts where you have the current 6 months and the previous 6 months,
Yes.
I wanted to confirm that the previous 6 months are the contiguous 6 months immediately before?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we're the immediate 6 month before this
Okay.
one. So
Thank you.
Those were the numbers that you saw last time,
Right.
which were the current. So I'm going to turn it over to Tony Montero, the head of our contract oversight and evaluation, to talk about some of their activities during the last 6 months. So come on up, Tony.
Good afternoon. My name's Tony Montero, Contract Oversight and Evaluations Division. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the countywide review of compliance and ordinance and the risk assessment. So what this was a fabulous team project done by all the inspector evaluators on our team. We went out to every single entity, Solid Waste Authority, and 11 county departments. We sat down with senior staff members, interviewed people, had a discussion with them, opened up a dialogue, and it was wonderful. The purpose of the review was to see, first off, were they complying with the IG ordinance? There are certain requirements in the IG ordinance, and then also to conduct a countywide risk assessment. We conducted 51 on-site reviews. Like I said, we hit all the municipalities, SWA, and 11 county departments. So under the IG ordinance, there are 4 things that we were looking for. Do they know to notify the IG of suspected fraud, waste, abuse, mismanagement, misconduct? And if you remember, I think the last time we were here, we talked about Lantana, and they had delayed in reporting to us, so we wanted to remind all the entities out there that this is a requirement in the IG ordinance. Written local policies on reporting to the IG, and that was fun because a lot of these entities didn't even know that they had a policy. It went back to 2014, and they were very happy that we gave it to them so that they could go ahead and update it for us, so we'll get those posted to the website. Notice of procurement selection meetings, they're supposed to notify us of any meetings. And also there's a requirement in the ordinance to develop training and awareness programs regarding the IG and their reporting requirements. So what we found was, we found a lot of things. The county and the municipalities and SWA, they were all largely in compliance with the IG ordinance, and that was good to see. They had website postings, they had materials put out about the IG, so we were very pleased to see how engaged they were. The risk concerns expressed by the entities were very similar in their scope and nature, and meeting with them gave us an opportunity to talk through some of these things. So we talked about a lot of best practices. We talked about other things that we have learned at other entities. So what was supposed to be quick 30-minute meetings, they bent our ear for hours. I mean, 2-3 hours in some cases. So it was really nice. Risk identified. When it came to contracts, a lot of them were worried about like their police, their fire, solid waste, their facilities contracts. Of course, police, fire, finance, the critical rescue functions that were out there. Major projects were centered around IT, roads, utilities, although a lot of them have new city halls on the horizon. And the sudden inflation of construction materials has really put a damper on some of their projects on how they're going to finance and get these things building. But a lot of the buildings do need renovations. They're at their 30, 40-year cycle, and they have some major criticals that they have to redo in these buildings. So a lot of them are looking at new city halls. When it came to fraud, they were very concerned about financial transactions. The whole check washing thing is just one piece of it, but we heard about attempts to try and defraud automated ACH payments, automated clearinghouse payments, vendor invoices, cyber security. These were all major areas that they're trying to focus on. Okay, so the next one is, so during our on-site visit, we redid a lot of our media kit items. We even added some. So that's the media kit items that we had. We have posters that they could put up. We gave them a new brochure on the red flags of procurement, shining a light on government, some contact cards that they could put out and that people can take. And of course, we redid the reference guide for managers so that if they're contacted by the IG or to learn about it, it's has more information in there that a manager could use. Also, we got to meet one of the requirements of our strategic plan, and this was strategic goal number 2, which was to strengthen relationships and build trust with the external stakeholders. And when we developed the plan last year, the office sat down and we came up with goals to try and meet that, strategies. How do you meet that goal? And we accomplished 3 of them. We conducted a marketing campaign to build awareness with the IG. We engaged employees and stakeholders to solicit input, and we increased communications and best practices and lessons learned. So we were able to interact with all of our stakeholders that are out there and hear from them what's going on, what do they need, what do they think, how do they feel about these issues. So it was wonderful. It was a good campaign, to say the least. So that was all right. Next, the investigative activities that John talked about. I want to just touch on a couple of them that we did. The first one is a guardrail complaint. And this was an anonymous complaint about an award that the county was trying to make. They said there were 2 awardees on it, and I think they were the only 2 people who responded to the bid, but there was a complaint against one of the vendors on their award, and it was a complex but interesting issue. The person that was accused of misrepresenting themselves, they have 2 companies that work out of the same address, almost same names, very similar names, but they have different tax ID numbers. So in the end, and the county took care of this, the county went back and looked at it and they said, you can't use the experience from the other company to justify your award here. 2 separate entities, the tax ID number was the concluding factor in that. So that was an interesting case to look at. The next one, this one was a rough one. This was about the thrift store. They got a used engine to surplus from the airports, it turns out, and it was a backup generator. It had seized, and they don't know if it could ever be fixed or the damage inside of it. So they went to try and put it out to auction, but every time they put it out, they had to pull it back for a variety of reasons, mainly because they weren't disclosing the true condition of the engine. As they had it, they learned more and more. This isn't the actual engine. This is one that looks similar to it, but it's huge. It's the size of a car and weighs more than a car. And so they had to go several rounds, and the person who submitted the correspondence, the complaint on this, they said that we didn't follow procedures, that according to the part of the statutes that deals with auctions, we shouldn't have done that. And the standards were actually surplus property when it comes to a public entity. And those were the standards, and they complied with it. And there were some nuances with the wording, but in the end, yeah, the county had followed the procedures correctly. All right, so, and you've seen this slide before, this is us, that we work below the water line. And I just want to throw in here, the investigative activities. I'm a numbers guy because I was an engineer in a prior life. And so I'm constantly running numbers for John. And our reports take anywhere from 300 to 350 hours, typically. But these investigative activities that we do, they clock in at about 100 to 150 hours, so they seem significant, and so that's why we decided to add that category, because a lot of work goes into these, because we want to make sure that we're researching the issue thoroughly, and even though we may not have a finding or recommendations to make and put it in a report, we still want to give the best answer possible when we respond back to the person who submitted the complaint. So here is us, the activity below the water line, and I would start the continuous monitoring. So we cover everything. We'll cover the bid, we'll cover the award, contract administration, invoicing, payment, and in this case, you see Sonia is out at a job site. This is at Ocean Inlet Park. It was active. They were in the process of fixing it up, and we're conducting inspections out there. And that day, she was supposed to get on a boat with the rest of them to go inspect this boat lift and dock that they put in, but the water was so rough, no one got on the boat. And there's a problem with the railing that behind you. That's why they're standing there when they took the photo. But that's Sonia out doing an inspection for us. In the middle panel, that's us at the Palm Beach Gardens. They invited us to their vendor open house, give us a chance to talk to vendors about what the IG does in our role. Inspector Carey gave the welcoming speech, and so that was an exciting opportunity for us. Okay, and you know, when we talk about what we do, as John said, we're interfacing with a lot of people. We go to a lot of meetings, review a lot of activities that wind up not producing anything, but we also want to check to make sure that we're not being biased in anything that we do. So these are just, again, numbers guy, numbers that we run, but when you look at our activities, you could see it's a pretty even split between the county and the municipalities. And if you go by dollar amount, again, everything's pretty balanced. The joint projects, of course, are very high dollar expensive, but like a surtax or something like that. But when you look at the balance, we are spreading the wealth, so to speak, in terms of our oversight coverage going to different meetings. So I always like to keep on top of that. And the last slide here is by commodities, again, showing that sometimes I think even, oh boy, we're hitting a lot of construction projects. No, they're just the most painful, but we do spread the wealth in terms of the types of commodities and what we're looking at. So, any questions? Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Wait,
Yes, sir.
I have a couple of questions. I brought the report with me
Okay.
so that I could refer to it. I'd like to clarify that the attachments A and B, which are the discussion items for the municipalities and SWA as well as PBC departments, those were the interview questions that you used in interviewing personnel?
Yes, we gave them an advance notice of what we wanted to speak to. Some of the entities filled it out and sent it back. That was not what we asked them to do, but that's okay. We went out there anyhow and met with them, and we had their written answers for some of the data, because that gave us things like budget, number of FTEs, some written comments about hiring, have they had a recent turnover, those things. But mainly, we just talked through them when we got there, and that was the purpose. We took the notes and we did the response.
Okay. Do you plan on repeating this evaluation?
I thought it was a wonderful experience. John would have to make that decision, but we learned a lot. I think from a risk assessment, this is interesting. Audit does the risk survey, but they told us things that they don't bother to fill out in the audit risk survey, and that was very interesting. We discovered that the check washing was problematic for a couple of entities. At least 6 entities reported that some attempts had been made at check washing. In one case, it was a lot of money, and they yelled and screamed at the bank and said, "Why did you even cash it?" And the bank said, "Yeah, you're right," and gave them their money back. But immediately Stu Robinson put out a tips and trends about check washing and to get everybody on notice of it. But it was a very interesting discussion. And even before the police announced that they arrested some people who had stolen a mailbox key, I think it was Wellington, had them, the bandits, outside City Hall with the key, opening the mailbox, and they're telling the postal inspectors, "Someone's got your key," and they're like, no, they don't. And so, but Wellington was very good about that. So.
Yeah. There's this one master key that they try to guard. The check washing was almost an epidemic for a while in Palm Beach County. And it was problematic. Do you think that you might consider a slightly different approach and perhaps give them a pre-interview multiple choice and then do your open-ended questions as follow-up?
I think that's a wonderful idea. There's a lot of science behind surveys and getting people to respond. Hillary's the expert on that, and John, and I've tried this multiple times. This was the most successful, but part of it was because we went out there and met with all of them. I think a lot of people filled out the survey because they didn't want to see us, but then once they saw us and realized that, what the purpose was, they enjoyed our visit a lot. I think it was very well received.
Okay, one last question. For everything that you heard and everything that you read and everything that you saw, what surprised you the most?
The surprises were probably in the area of finance and cybersecurity. A lot of people are worried now about, construction has inflated. And one of the best practices I was talking about with every single one of them that I went to was about auditing your construction contracts. And at the same time, our audit department was putting out the report last year about the Tequesta and, doing the construction audit. And it's just a best practice to have an audit team right in there following it as you went along. And I think a lot of them are nervous about construction, about vendors, possibly being ripped off, especially with the high cost of materials. And so there was a lot of concern about making their dollars go further, especially in light of inflation. So the construction in area and the payments in there, that was a big concern of theirs. And cybersecurity, a lot of them think they had it locked down. And the risk assessments that needed to be done, a lot of them weren't doing it. They're relying on the same vendor that may maintain their system, but that's not a risk assessment. That's just your vendor telling you, yeah, you're secure. But the state had a deadline of October last year, this year, to have standards in place and to meet certain standards. And I think the reality of that was just starting to catch up to them. So I've noticed a couple of bids that have gone out from municipalities on conducting risk assessments, cyber risk assessments.
Right, construction risk, especially with minimal internal controls, is problematic. Doesn't matter what your environment is.
And, you know, even though that a lot of them have gone electronic and have tried to smooth out the system, you really do need eyes looking at these invoices, looking at the progress reports that are submitted. You need to go out to the vendor site and verify, yeah, they're working, yeah, they put in the right fixtures. And that's what my team's trying to do. You know, we're just spot checking these things. But for a lot of these entities, that means more people and better training for them on the financial risk factors.
Training is everything.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Tony. Again, you could see, this is the expert when it comes to procurement. He's the guy. I mean, we're just so fortunate to have Tony and the entire staff. Sonia, Lisa, Tiffany. I mean, you all really do a good job in a very technical area. And you can see when the types of complaints when they come in, you see it's just, you have to know what you're doing from the start to really do some investigation on that. It's a lot of research and review, so he does a great job. Okay, so let me catch up here. Okay, now we're to audits. Here's the overall audit activities. Again, this in the green is this 6 month compared to the last 6 months. You see pretty steady of what we've been doing in audits. I should recommend that not in these dollars, but that happened here that in the last 6 months, you know, if you recall last time we did an audit on at the airport on rental car lease and concession agreement at Palm Beach International Airport. And since that, as a result of the report, the rental car company, they've recovered over $20,000 of fees that were related to revenues based on that report that we conducted the last 6 months. So a lot of times the money's come in after the fact, but this is a pretty good, nice chunk of money that has come in since that and as a result of that audit. But for our audits, I'm going to turn it over to Hilary Beaujean, our Director of Audits, to talk about a couple of the audits that we've done this last time.
Good afternoon. My name is Hilary Beaujean. I'm the Director of Audit. So the first report we have here was for the West Palm Beach Fire Service Assessment Fee, and it was conducted by Hank Nagel, who I don't think made it today. No, he didn't. So the Fire Service Assessment Fee is a special assessment used to cover the cost of providing fire services in West Palm Beach. And the city uses a separate fund to account for the receipt and disbursement of that assessment. The city's management requested that we conduct the audit, which focused on determining if program expenditures were in compliance with the requirements that were set forth in the ordinance establishing the assessment. We found that the city had generally adequate controls over the disbursement of the fire assessment fee monies. However, the city did not maintain sufficient documentation to support interdepartmental transfers into and out of the fund. Interdepartmental transfers are done when costs that are paid out of another city fund are charged to the fire assessment fund. For example, to pay for capital assets or to pay for services charged by another city department. In the case of the IT general services and equipment maintenance services costs that we have there, the city did not have documentation to support how those costs were allocated to the fire assessment fee fund. So we were not able to conclude if the costs were in compliance with the ordinance. After the audit, the city implemented procedures for allocating and overseeing those costs to ensure that they're in compliance with the ordinance going forward. Regarding the transfers for capital lease expenditures and capital acquisitions, the city transferred fire service assessment fee monies to other city funds to pay for these costs. However, we found that not all of the money transferred was actually spent. As a result of these findings, the city transferred the unspent money back to the fire assessment fee fund, or they created a separate account within the other fund in order to track the fire assessment fee monies and ensure that they were used in compliance with the ordinance. So our next report issued was for the town of Manalapan's IT network security, and this was performed by Hank Nagel as well. Overall, we found that the town had processes in place designed to prevent, monitor, detect, and respond to network security threats and intrusions. However, we found the town did not have any IT network security policies in place prior to the commencement of our review. During our review, the town implemented an IT policy. However, we found it lacked sufficient written guidance for data and asset sanitization and disposal processes, as well as the incident response and recovery process. During the audit, or by the end of the audit rather, the town had implemented most of our recommendations from that report. Additionally, during this review, we found out that the impact of our IT network security reviews has reached further than the entities that we've gone to so far. The IT consultant for the town of Manalapan also performed services for 4 other entities within Palm Beach County, as well as several entities in Martin and Broward County. And he informed us that he's provided the IT policy he uses, and which includes our recommendations. He's provided to those entities to help strengthen their processes and controls over IT. And the last audit report issued for the past 6 months was for the Village of Wellington, where we did an IT application security audit. And this audit was performed by Kathy Davis, who is here today. This audit focused on user access control. Overall, we found the village effectively managed IT application, user access, administrative privileges, and user licenses. However, we found the village did not disable access in a timely manner for 9 user accounts of employees that no longer worked at the village. We recommended that the village update its policies and procedures to include a defined time frame to notify IT of employee separations, as well as disable those user accounts, and also to ensure that staff are aware of their roles and responsibilities related to those policies and procedures. And that concludes the audit reports for the past 6 months. Any questions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hillary. And a couple of things I just want to point out there that you see that, I mean, the impact that the audit department have here. We did a few audits, and yet how that passed from one consultant to multiple cities, even outside of the county. So the positive impact that she's had there and the staff. So great job that they're doing. And also another portion in West Palm Beach, that audit that we did there. We did our presentation out brief to the mayor and the city manager. He invited us in, and he thought that was important enough. He had us come back and present that to the whole city council or commission there. So that just shows kind of between there and also Palm Beach Gardens, from where this office, when we started, there was a lot of angst about the office. Who are these folks? What are they doing? To where we've come today, to where, again, cities are inviting us out. They're accepting our recommendations, and they're understanding it's not us against them. It's about us together making government better. And we're the folks who can come outside and from an outside perspective and provide some recommendations to them. So, I mean, just the great team effort that I think that we've developed with the county and most of the cities. And also, I think that, so it's not just with our work, but again, the staff and the quality of people we have and the leadership that we have from Hillary and Tony and Stu and Calentia and the whole team when they go out there. It's just critical in building relationships to make government better, which is our goal. Okay, some training and outreach, talking about that, getting out the door. This is just a glimpse of the people that we've talked to over the last 6 months. You see a lot of government people we've been out and about giving that training to and the contacts with. The blue is the citizens that we've made outreach presentations to. And again, I like to have my commercial during this time that if anybody knows of a citizens group, a Rotary Club, Kiwanis, Chamber of Commerce, someplace that, I can go and speak to them and tell them who we are, what we do for them, let me know. I'm always ready to go out and speak to folks. Contacts with the media, and then I only have that one, it looks like a small thing, that education and awareness thing, but that was big. I don't know if you received these in the mail. Thousands of Palm Beach citizens receives every month the Channel 20, Palm Beach County Channel 20 program guide. And we were on the cover in November, and I got to write an article in there, and this advertised not only our IG committee meeting that we had, but also during that month, I had a half-hour interview on Channel 20 with Todd Von Laren, had commercials often going out on Channel 20, a 60-second commercial about our office. So this was a pretty good thing, and we hope to do this in the future. Just this highlights some of the things we did. Of course, up in the upper left-hand corner with the folks at the table, that was a joint venture with the Commission on Ethics during that day that in March when we had the county had the March Ethics Proclamation. So we also had a table out front where we could speak with not only people in government, but outside of government. So that was a great venture we did with them. Another thing we did with the Commission on Ethics, you see in the center, a number of us and the Commission on Ethics folks were at the National High School Ethics Bowl together as judges and evaluators and monitors. So we were out there with the Commission on Ethics team out there to do that. Now, FAPO, I should have a test. Who knows what FAPO is? That's an interesting one. Tony went out during this time and spoke to the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials, a large group out there, and gave a presentation to them about lessons learned and tips to them during this time. I have in the center there with myself, Stu, Tony, and above there, Colinthia. We all are instructors at our National Inspector General's Institute, that we train Inspector Generals from not only across the United States, but sometimes some folks from outside other countries. And I should mention that they pay for us to come, our travel and per diem for us while we're out there doing that training. But we have an impact, again, not only on, particularly this time, a lot of Florida IGs, but IGs from, again, across the country, across the world. Stu gave a presentation at the Institute for Internal Auditors on interviewing techniques for auditors, some things they should know. Colinthia, she spoke at the County Paralegal Association, and down there at the bottom right, that's just a reminder for me, every semester, Florida Atlantic University asked me out at their executive MBA program, and I gave a presentation on ethics and leadership in one of their leadership classes, and I also do every semester, usually at the Palm Beach Atlantic University. They'll have me come out and talk about ethics and leadership. So we get out and about. Now our budget and staffing. Again, this is, I always like to put this up because originally, way back when, 14 years ago, when the office was established, it was about 20 people for the county, and then we took on all the 38 cities, now 39 cities, and the commission and everybody agreed, hey, yeah, it's going to take a lot more people to do all of that from what you had, and so we were approved by the county for 40 positions. We had a lawsuit about how to pay for us. A lot of things went on, and so we have never really got up to that original authorization of positions. We're at 27 right now, which is about $2.30 per citizen, which is less than about a half a Big Mac, and 0.04% of the budgets that we provide oversight. And I put this quote in. This was just from our most recent peer review. And again, the Association of Inspector Generals, they peer review inspector generals across the country from the federal level, the state level, local level, across the country. So they've got a pretty good picture on its Office of Inspector Generals. And their quote that they left in our report, again, the sheer size of operations that your office oversees, your office's jurisdiction and responsibility is unparalleled by any other local government inspector general office. And so we're in, so this is not just for you, but for any county commissioners or Ms. Baker, if you're listening out there, the staffs, we've requested 3 more positions for next year in our staff, which would bring us up to over 70%. Right now, we're just under 70. And I think if you went to school and you got under 70%, that's usually, I think you would call that not satisfactory. So we're trying to get above at least 70%. And so why? Again, because, not just because that's what originally was envisioned, we have over 1,000 auditable units within the county, that things where we should be going and looking, and we've looked at a fraction of the places that we should be, looking at to do audits. Thousands of auditable units. 2, we're one of the organizations, we bring money back to the county and to the cities by our recommendation. Not only make government better by a recommendation, but we also bring some money back to them. And then next, we're the guardians. We are the citizens' guardians, the taxpayers' guardians, and we're here to provide that trust in government. Okay, where are we going? Just shortly, we're going to just continue what we're doing. We're going to continue to execute our plan, execute the audit plan. We're going to adapt as those complaints, that's just part of it. As the complaints and the information come in, we're going to continue to adapt to do what we're doing now. And now as we're winding it down, I just like to give just a summary of here's what we've done since we've been here in the past 14 years. Over 13,000 calls, complaints, questions, papers have come into us. And again, a lot of them we do, but a lot of it, we're the office, like I said earlier. When nobody else knows who to call, they call our hotline. And we got a new hotline that makes it easier, 877-OIG-TIPS. So people can call us up and say, I don't know who to call, but I've got your number, and we get them. If we don't handle it, we'll get them where they need to go. Talking about that money, $55 million in question cost. And the difference between question cost and the $25 million in potential cost findings. That potential cost finding is money that we clearly identify that the cities, the town, that can be recouped, is possible of being recouped. The other dollars, this question cost, there's basically 3 categories, and this is an IG term that's at the federal level in the 1978 Inspector General Act that federal IGs use and most IGs use across the country. 3 categories is number 1, that there is an allegation of a violation against the law, regulation, grant, cooperative agreement, or policies and procedures. Category 2, that where financial obligations is not supported by adequate documentation. That's where we find a lot of our question costs, where basically we're not doing the best job in accounting for our taxpayer dollars. When we spend money, you need to have a receipt. There needs to be a paper trail. When you're going out and spending our taxpayer dollars or receiving, you need to have an accounting for that. And we make a lot of recommendations to do better accounting of our taxpayer dollars. Why? Because we should, as stewards. But number 2, even as important, without that a proper accounting, that is a big fraud risk. When nobody's watching, we find that's when somebody's eventually going to put their hand in the till and take it, if nobody's making a proper accounting of that. And then finally, costs that are unnecessary or unreasonable. So that's a lot of the dollars that we find. Made over 1,300 recommendations. most, you can see the high percentage, 91 point something percent of them are accepted by management. I think we talked about the sharing best practices and preventing the bad. 22 arrests directly that have come from our work. Now, other arrests have come from our referrals to law enforcement that we didn't really work. So we don't take credit, of cases that come in if we have not put some of our own work involved in that. So a number of the things we refer to law enforcement, they're making arrests out there, but unless I can say, no, my folks have been involved in the investigation, or this is a direct result of that audit, we won't claim credit for that arrest. And then you can see, almost 700 cases referred to law enforcement agencies or commissions, either our local commission on ethics or the state commission on ethics. And that concludes my presentation. Are there any questions or comments?
You do a great job, John.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Carey, Mr. Montero, Ms. Bojan. I can't believe that you guys are doing all this work, especially operating at 67.5% of your authorized staff. So I really commend everyone. Even our interns, I'm sure they are helping.
Put them to work.
Right. So I really commend everyone on the great work, and it was a great report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? All right, seeing none, is there any new business?
Nope.
All right, seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Nice work.